This is another one of those spots with the 50 PV stack in the small blind where you should be, instead of clicking the pot button, clicking the 4 spot.
Interesting.
That as the initial opener, because you get punished more because they're supposed to have a wider 3-betting range.
It's kind of annoying, isn't it?
Yeah, but you just adjust and then it's not as annoying.
Right. Yeah. I mean, if you know how to adjust,
You have to be.
it's not
You can't
annoying.
just autopilot. You got to tune in.
Yes.
Yeah, but I just told you. You just got the correct answer. You click the 3/4 button instead of the full pot button.
So I mean, the small blind affects it that
I'm not trying.
that drastically. Whereas, like, is the small blinds like, does it? What if the small stack was in the big blind rather than the small blind?
I just play it the same for both.
Okay.
It's a little less important for the big blind, but it's most important for the small blind. And I just simplify for the ease of my own soul to just doing it if they're in one of those 2 spots.
Okay.
Good c-bet. Love it.
Yeah, pretty interesting spot here. I think
This is a tricky turn.
I remember what happens here.
So the first thing we think about is, what is our opponent's calling range in the small blind pre-flop?
You mean like if we're debating on a second barrel here on the turn?
They check all the flop after calling from the small blind pre. That's a lot of data that we have. So what do those two, like, given what we know about what the small blind's flatting range should be generally pre-flop, what does that sequence of events now say about their current range?
I would say.
So let's start with what their range should be, flatting the small blind, before any other data is given to us.
I mean, on this board, I would say potentially like middle and bottom sets and then straight draws.
Yeah. So yes, correct. Pocket queens are a good small blind flatting hand. Pocket eights if it's like 8, 8, 9, 10, and then a lot of like queen jack 10x 9 10 jack x type stuff flats from the small blind, especially at 50. Like, this person's not playing GTO, but if they were, those are hands that go into a small blind flatting range at that stack depth. So given all of that, now we're on the turn and we have no 9, no 10, no jack in our hand, right? But we do have an ace, a king, an 8, and clubs.
Right.
So what does that say about what our opponent's range should look like here?
I would think that it would be pretty heavily weighted to the straight draws.
I think I agree that they're pretty heavily weighted towards the straight draws. And so that's why this is really borderline. Like, if I don't have the flush draw here, they lead into you. I mean, you never fold. You're not allowed to fold ever. But the lead makes perfect sense because they just have a lot of straights in this spot. Like, this person's probably just looking down at Jack 10 in their hand and clicking lead because they don't want, like, the board to pair or a club to come out. But even in game theory land, they're going to have a lot of straights here. Yeah, I think you actually have to fold this river, legitimately.
Yeah, I mean,
because you don't have a 10 or a jack in your hand.
I think, I mean, those were all the things that I was thinking on the turn in the river, and I think also this guy just thinks I'm like pretty stationy at this point. Just like side note, so I don't think he's like bluffing me there all that often.
Yeah, I don't think so either. People at low stakes, people are just they have a hard time finding bluffs, especially bluff leads. Oh man, finding a bluff lead is not easy, right? And so you have to kind of navigate your way into finding those combinations. And I just, like, the bluff leads that they'll have there, I don't even know if they exist. It'd have to be like ace 9 10 that they flatted with from the small blind. That's a bluff lead in that spot. But there's just so many more combinations of straights than there are bluffs